And away we go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome to Coffee Talk. That is Coffee Talk Live or at Coffee Talk Live on YouTube or Prepper University on YouTube, being simultaneously broadcast on both channels, as well as at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter. Glad you were able to join us here today as people are starting to chime in on the live portion that takes place on YouTube at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time most days. Although today I am a little bit early. I got a reason for that. I had to start early. Hopefully, enough people got a notification on time because the notifications are sketchy at best with YouTube as it is. Also, don't forget Fistful of Radio, fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. You can find me there. For those of you who can see, joined, of course, here today by Daniel. Daniel finally made it back into his regular spot. And I have Miss Granny Smith sleeping on the floor here because she didn't make it to the chair before he did, and they are not going to sit together. They're just not, because they're cats, and that's how it is. I'll go ahead and acknowledge some of the people who have chimed in so far on YouTube. If you're on Twitter, I don't think I can see your comments, but I can see them on both channels on YouTube. And of course, I do try to muddle through as many of the comments as I can as people ask questions or make points about some of the articles that we read. For those of you who are listening and not able to see, I see D'Lo has joined us, as well as Keisha. And Dragon is here, Helter, Bingo, acknowledging so far as we get ready to take a look at some of what's going on in the news. And I will start off actually by picking up on something that we left off on yesterday, because just a couple more points about that. Really, a couple more points about the corruption of the entire thing. I see Cyberjack Sr. has made it, and hopefully the early start today hasn't thrown too many people off, because I know I do have people who are viewing from other continents, Australia, New Zealand, Germany, the United Kingdom, and places like that. And it's hard enough for some of them to make it to the live as it is without me starting an hour earlier. But we did have my wife is out of town, has been out of town for a few days because of a family emergency. And she's coming back this afternoon, and I want to be available for her. So I had to start a little bit earlier as a courtesy for her as we get ready to bust into these news articles. And going back to, again, Stacy Abrams, or more specifically, Stacy Abrams' brother-in-law. I had opened this article up yesterday as a point of discussion, and this particular article is from Fox News, entitled, of course, Stacy Abrams' brother-in-law arrested on human trafficking and battery charges. More specifically, I question the human trafficking. I think that's Florida taking it a step too far. I would call it soliciting a minor and battery, because he did solicit a minor for prostitution, and he did beat her up, and he's being held on charges for that. A couple more comments here really quickly. Bingo says, your channel's really taking off. I've noticed the likes have went through the roof. Have they? I hope so. Thumbs up, please. They say, or as I say, the rumor has it that it helps with the algorithm. I don't believe it, but I appreciate it. So yeah, please do thumbs up. And I see Nostalgic Pod Blast is here. Happy Thanksgiving Eve. Programming note due to holiday programming. Coffee Talk will be on Fistful of Radio at 2 p.m. today after this YouTube stream. Oh, he's starting a little early. Understandable. Thanks for the heads up. Thanks for the heads up there, Nostalgic Pod Blast, who is associated actually with Fistful of Radio. So you can find them there as well. And Deanna has made it. Again, hope I didn't throw anybody off by starting a little earlier today, but, just accommodating my wife with her family emergency and her coming back. And without reading through the whole article again, Jimmy Gardner, who is 57, and that's him on the left, next to his sister-in-law, Stacy Abrams. So he, 57 again, solicited a 16-year-old prostitute for sexual favors, brought her to his hotel at, I think it says 1:43 a.m. in the morning. So early, he knew what he was doing. 1:43 a.m. in the morning. And when she got there, something made her uncomfortable. And she was like, you know what? I think I'd rather just leave. And he got upset and he beat her up. Beat her up, choked her out, and left her in the hotel room and went somewhere. And then she called the police from the hotel. And it's like, moron, it's registered in your name. Like they're not going to figure out it's you and find you. And yes, they did. And yes, they're holding him without bail. And there's so much to be said for this. One, his profession is as a youth motivational speaker. So when you were in junior high school and you had the guy that came up on stage and they made you sit there and he's like, hey guys, stick with your dreams and stuff. That's him. So he works with kids. His wife is a district court judge appointed by Obama personally in 2014. And of course, his sister-in-law is Stacey Abrams, and you all know about that. Helter says Gardner did 25 years in prison for sexually assaulting 2 women. Why a federal judge married this guy, I'll never truly understand. Is that true? That's interesting. I didn't know that. If that's true, that's fascinating, especially in such a politically charged family. Why would you associate with someone like that? And how could this person end up being a youth pastor if he has a history of assaulting women and went to prison for it? That opens so many that opens so many questions. And Keisha says, I'm a sweet, devoted husband. I try. I am very devoted, though. I am very devoted to my wife. And Dragon says, it's interesting she gets a pass for never conceding the governor's election and claims it was stolen. I've talked about that a lot. She claims that she was robbed of 2 elections, 2 gubernatorial runs, because she's run for governor of Georgia twice. And Nostalgic points out that she was the president of the world, president of Earth in the fictional Star Trek universe. And that's about as close as she's ever going to get. She's the designated loser. And Thomas is here today. Glad you could make it, Thomas, as well as Monkey. Monkey chiming in here. So this is wrong on so many levels, and it reeks of corruption. And I'll point out also, you don't just decide to grab the youngest prostitute you can find and bring her back to a hotel room. There's a history behind that, in my opinion, because that's a stretch. That's a stretch. And you got to wonder about the mentality, because I know that there are young girls who look older, but they don't look that much older that they don't look too young. Does that make sense to anybody? I don't know about you. I want a woman. I don't want someone who looks like a little girl. That's creepy to me. And also it raises the question, since he works with youth, has he ever exploited any of them? And will that now come out when he gets to court? Will anybody be willing to come forward and say, yeah, hey, he talked me into this or that? And I want to hear from the girl. What was it when you got back to this guy's hotel room? What did he say or do that made you double back? What made you say, all right, you know what? Wait a minute. On second thought, keep your money. I'm out of here. If you're into that sort of thing, what about him made you change your mind? What made you change your mind? There's so many questions. And so I just wanted to touch on that again really quickly, since it came up yesterday. Another thing that came up yesterday, and I'll mention this in a moment. One more question. Sean says, let me guess, they're all Democrats. Why, yes, they are actually, Sean. They are all Democrats. Stacey Abrams obviously is, and so is her sister, the district court judge, who is his wife, are all Democrats, and I have to assume he is as well. tied in with that whole family, a whole family. And someone had asked about you know, does the job corrupt these people? I think they're corrupt enough that they seek it out, that they want that power and authority so that they can project their sinister ways, if you will, even deeper without the risk of getting into trouble. I think that's why. For example, I would not want to be a state senator. I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want the job. I would do it. Like if I had an actual opportunity to run against Warnock and it seemed legitimate, I would do it so that I could try to do the job right. Does that sound right? But I wouldn't want the job. Not that I'm going to run for senator. I'm not planning on running for any public office. I'm just making a point. They wouldn't want me because I would be like Esau. My hand is against everyone and everyone's hand is against me. I would defy everything. But I would do the job. I wouldn't want the power. I wouldn't want the authority. I would be willing to do the job if I thought I could help anything. But what kind of person seeks that job? Someone who wants that power and authority. But why? So you can help people? Or so that you can help yourself? And I see Gary Smith has joined us. And Jeffro, who says Democrats, shocker. Yeah, you think? Not that Republicans are above reproach by any means, but it seems like for some reason people in the Democratic Party are much worse, are into scarier stuff. This came up yesterday also, talking about investigations into January 6th. And this is from the Daily Dot. And it says GOP Representative Clay Higgins pushes viral ghost buses January 6th conspiracy while warning FBI director your day is coming. And I've heard this, that busloads of feds were brought in to infiltrate the crowds and whip them up. Republican Representative Clay Higgins told FBI Director Christopher Wray that his day is coming after Wray denied any role by the FBI in inciting January 6th Capitol riot. And again, wording is important. It is now a Capitol riot and no longer referred to as an insurrection. They stopped referring to it as an insurrection when the video footage was passed on to Tucker Carlson and he exposed it. Higgins claimed at a Homeland Security Committee meeting on Wednesday that our government's highest levels of law enforcement coordinate organized campaigns of weaponized oppression, harassment, investigation, arrest, and prosecution and imprisonment of free Americans. That is the primary threat of our homeland indeed faces today. If you are asking whether the violence at Capitol on January 6th was part of some operation orchestrated by the FBI sources and or agents, the answer is an emphatic no. Wray, a former President Donald Trump appointee, said in response to questioning from Higgins. Do you know what a ghost vehicle is? Higgins asked next. You're the director of the FBI. You certainly should. Do you know what a ghost bus is? When Wray said he didn't, that's a lie. Anyways, that's a lie. Higgins, a former police officer, explained that it was a common term in law enforcement. It's a vehicle that used for secret purposes. It's painted over, Higgins said, pointing to a photo of buses he claimed were the first to arrive at Union Station in Washington on January 6th. These buses are nefarious in nature and were filled with FBI informants dressed as Trump supporters deployed into our Capitol on the 6th. And your day is coming, Mr. Wray, Higgins finished. See, now that's what makes it fishy to me. I would assume that the FBI director would know what a ghost vehicle is. And he's sitting here saying no. And like he pointed out, that's a common term in law enforcement. How do you not know what that means? The fact that he would deny knowing what it even means. If he had sat there and said, well, yeah, I know what a ghost vehicle is, but we didn't have any at Capital City on the 6th. What is your point? He didn't do that. He denied knowing even what it was. And I think that's very suspicious. And as I catch up a few more comments here, I'll try to because it skipped around. Nostalgic says, look at America's hunting buddy, Dick Cheney, the warmonger. Yeah, didn't he accidentally shoot somebody? Nostalgic says, your point about both parties being evil. Urban says, is everyone early or am I late? Yeah, everyone is early, Urban. I had to start an hour early today so that I can help my wife out because she's on her way back due to a family emergency. She's been gone for a few days, and I want to make sure I'm available for her. Dragon says, I remember when saying some stupid stuff like this would get you voted out. Dan Quayle misspelled potato, and it ended his career. That's right. And Thomas says, government. Yeah, no kidding. Of course, they do that kind of stuff. What do you think Watergate was? People don't understand about Watergate. I've talked about it many times. Watergate was not about breaking into a motel room or a hotel room. Watergate ran deeper than that. Watergate, when it was fully cracked open, exposed corruption, extortion, blackmail, theft, intimidation, and a lot of other illegal things from the FBI, the CIA, the Department of Justice, the Office of the President, spanning back decades. Nothing was done about it. And this is an example of that very same thing still going on. And we're supposed to trust this. And again, my point, it makes me really suspicious that Ray denies even knowing what a ghost vehicle is. Says the FBI infiltration claim is at odds with how most MAGA influencers responded before and immediately after the riot broke out. On since deleted social media posts, attendees and supporters cheered the invasion of the Capitol. Then, as backlash spread, they began blame it on Antifa infiltrators and a government-orchestrated conspiracy. I don't put it past the government to be able to do something like that, or to be willing to do something like that. And I see Legends has joined us here today. Glad you could make it. Helda says future generations will study these people and have a hard time believing the extent to which they have completely debased themselves to defend that man who, by the way, and I guess it's going to be continued, he has something else to say, but it didn't type through. Will they really, though? How many people really understand what happened with Watergate? How many people understand the Pentagon Papers? If no one is going to teach it and nobody is interested in going out and researching it, no one will know. Nobody's going to know. Gary says, does Ray have a law enforcement background? I would hope so if he's the director of the FBI. I'm not sure about Ray's background off the top of my head, though, but that's a decent question. And Keisha made a $2 donation to the channel. Thank you, Keisha. Much appreciated as always. And you see Daniel there sleeping in the chair in the background. And Going Survival has joined us. Glad you could make it here today. We were just talking about Ray denying that he even knows what a ghost bus is. But more to the point, okay, it's a term commonly used in law enforcement, as was pointed out by the person interviewing Ray. Even if he's not in law enforcement, most people kind of know what that means anyways. I'm sure the majority of you watching here now know what a ghost vehicle or ghost car is. You probably even saw it on TV. You probably even saw that on TV. As we move around here, we're going to jump over to San Francisco. I love this article I'm about to share with you here. I love this article, and this is going to be another one from Fox News. Because guess what? You know, they cleaned up the streets for the conference, and, you know, Xi Jinping was coming from China, and they wanted to kiss his ass, and they spit polished the streets. They polished the turd, as it were. And guess what? A day later, and it's right back where it was. Right back where it was after Governor Nuisance went on and on about, we've been having talks about this for years, and this was always planned. It's already fallen apart that quick. One more here. Thomas says government looks like Animal Farm. It's the same. Yeah. Orwell's Animal Farm. Excellent book, and can be seen in two animated films, one from the 60s, I believe it was the 1960s, correct? From BBC, which is completely animated, which is pretty cool, and a live action kind of version. I think Patrick Stewart did voice work in it. Both renditions are really well pulled off. And if you hear thumping, there's some construction going on out here. Fox News, San Francisco business owner sounds off on mayor downplaying crime, homelessness, and poop everywhere again. Sean says Ray is an attorney. Imagine that. I'm not surprised. Not surprised at all. And here we go. Here's a recent shot from San Francisco right after the event, sleeping right on the street, just like that. I wish I could sleep that easily and that peacefully. It says, one San Francisco business owner sounded off against Mayor London Breed for downplaying crime and homelessness after the city led a temporary effort to clean up the streets ahead of the highly anticipated Apex Summit last week. Lifelong San Francisco resident Tom Wong said during Fox and Friends First that in less than one day, the city was back to its original form, ridden with crime, drugs, and homelessness. It's horrible. This is a quote. It's horrible. I just drove through the Tenderloin, and it's just a lot of drug heads, drug dealers, and they're all out. They're all out in the neighborhood. Wong told co-host Todd Pirro Tuesday. It's less than 24 hours, and it's back to the same thing. Oh, that quick. That quick. And we're right back where we started. So much for Newsom's cleanup. It says it's crime-ridden, drugs everywhere, there's needles everywhere, there's poop everywhere. Again, he continued. Governor Gavin Newsom, and yes, I say nuisance on purpose, admitted the city was cleaned up because of the notable meeting between China's Xi and President Biden last week. I know folks are saying, and this is the quote again, I know folks are saying, oh, they're just cleaning up the place because of all those fancy leaders are coming to town. That's true because it's true. Newsom said during an unveiling of the new program to plant trees in urban neighborhoods as part of his Clean California initiative launched in 2021. He added, it's also true for months and months and months before APEC, we've been having different conversations, wording, people. Oh, I hate how this jumps around. It's the pop-up ads messing me up here. And we've raised the bar of expectation between the city, the county, and the state on our federal partners. So they've been having conversations since 2021. Conversations about what? About the cleanup? About anything? He said different conversations. Maybe they were talking about something else entirely. That's called equivocation, folks. Equivocation. And politicians love that. Politicians love it. Monkey says, hope those owners that were on the temporary cleaned area realize this is what they could have if they'd had a competent governor and system. But who will they vote for? And does their voting even count? Does it even work at all? Does it even work at all? It says, despite the efforts to rid San Francisco of drugs and crime ahead of the U.S.-China summit, Wong argued the city reverted to its previous state shortly after the visit. Why am I not surprised? However, Breed doubled down on claims over the weekend that the city's crime levels have improved in recent years, a suggestion critics claim is undeniably false as businesses and residents flee. Okay, and that's more equivocation. It says that the city's crime levels have improved in recent years. Well, if you raised the bar for what it takes to get arrested and or prosecuted, then on paper, you are going to have less crime. Just making the point. Just making the point for those of you who are keeping track. You can't refuse to arrest people and then say there's less crime. You see what I mean? It just doesn't jive. It just doesn't jive. It says when you look at the data of what is happening with our crime numbers over the past 5 years, they are showing a decline, especially with car break-ins, burglaries, and other challenges that people are talking about, Breed said during ABC's This Week on Sunday. Breed is not telling the whole truth, which is what equivocating is. It's telling enough of the truth. It's like when Governor Nuisance said, we've had different conversations for months and months. He didn't say he talked about cleaning up the city. He said he had different conversations. He's not lying, but he's not telling you the truth either. Dragon says, years ago, I went to a San Francisco wedding, and even back then, my friend warned me about all the human feces I would have to look out for in the streets of San Francisco. The decay started a long time ago. Yes, it has. It's been going on for decades. It's been building up. Monkey says, true, the rest of the citizens that voted for this will just continue until it gets to the point of unlivability. Sometimes people, though, they go with the policy of better a devil you know. So someone else comes along and they're like, well, who the hell is this? I already know what to expect with Nuisance, so I may as well vote for him again. I know what to expect from Breed. I may as well vote for him again, and so on, instead of trying something new and different. Monkey says, AKA, it ain't possible to live there anymore, financially, crime, environmentally. No, people should just leave, provided they have anywhere to go and the means to get there. It's not as simple as pick up and go for everybody. Urban says, some time ago, someone made an online poop locator for San Francisco, but they had to stop when the map was all poop with no spaces. I remember that. I remember the feces map, the feces warning map for the San Francisco area. And you see Daniel is starting to stir here because he hears all the noise and he doesn't like it because cats don't like that sort of thing. Poor Daniel. Don't worry, buddy. Oregon in trouble again. Yeah, that's right. We're going to jump over to Oregon and talk about gun control. And this comes from the Associated Press. It says, voter-approved Oregon gun control law violates the state constitution, judge rules. I don't know about the state constitution, but all gun laws violate the Second Amendment, period, no matter what they are. Whether they're good or bad, they're technically a violation of the Second Amendment anyways, just for the point of reference. But Oregon is having issues now with their new rules. It says voter-approved Oregon gun control law violates the state constitution, a judge ruled Tuesday, continuing to block it from taking effect and casting fresh doubt over the future of the embattled measure. The law, one of the toughest in the nation, was among the first gun restrictions to be passed after a major U.S. Supreme Court ruling last year changed the guidance judges are expected to follow when considering Second Amendment cases. The decision was handed down by Circuit Court Judge Robert Rashiro, the presiding judge in Henry County in rural southeast Oregon. The law requires people to undergo a criminal background check and complete a gun safety training course in order to obtain a permit to buy a firearm. It also bans high-capacity magazines. What is a high-capacity magazine? That's a matter of opinion. Also, we already have criminal background checks. It's called the Brady Bill. Everyone in the country has to do that. And getting a safety training course in order to obtain a permit, I'm not necessarily against that. And I'll bring you back to once upon a time. They used to do that in high schools in this country. Not anymore, not for a long time. But I'm not necessarily opposed to people taking a safety course, depending. But, getting back into the article here, it says Measure 114 has been tied up in a state and federal court since it was narrowly approved by voters last November. I'm kind of surprised voters would vote for that in the first place if that vote was legitimate. The state trial stemmed from a lawsuit filed by gun owners claiming the law violated the right to bear arms under the Oregon Constitution. The defendants include such Oregon officials as Democratic Governor Tina Kotek, Attorney General Ellen Rosenblum and State Police Superintendent Casey Cotting. They can appeal to the Oregon Court of Appeals, and the case could ultimately go to the Oregon Supreme Court. So they'll take it all the way to the Supreme Court. The decision is likely the first opening salvo of multiple rounds of litigation, said Norman Williams, constitutional law professor at Willamette University. I want to know what Oregon considers to be a high-capacity magazine. What do you think is a high-capacity magazine? Opinions, anyone? And let me catch up a couple of comments here. Monkey says, true, the rest of the citizens that voted for this will just continue until it gets to the point of unlivability. And let me, I think I lost my place. Here we go. Keisha says, I think the world has literally gone crazy. It's been crazy for a long time. It just keeps getting worse because it's not being treated. And Sean says, when they say voter approved, I think that's a false statement. I don't know. I don't necessarily fully trust the voting process anyways. Voter approved. Who voted for it? I don't know. I don't know. And what is a high capacity round in Oregon? I'd love to know that. I'm going to look that up. And I found the answer, and I'm going to share that with you. I looked it up real quick. And I don't agree with this personally, but I'm going to share it with you. According to Oregon, the new law, it's 10 rounds. It's 10 rounds. And Stewart says 50 plus rounds. No, you're wrong, Stewart. It's 10. Does that count if there's one in the chamber? Asking for a friend. Thomas says a right that can be taken away from you is not a right, but a concession. And that's my argument always, Thomas, that we don't have rights, we don't have liberty, and we don't have freedom. We have privileges. If the right signature on the right piece of paper can take it away, it's a privilege. Monkey says breaking the Rainbow Bridge around the Niagara Falls area that bridges U.S. and Canada closes from an explosion on the U.S. side. Really? Really? And Gary says for some, a high-capacity magazine holds one. But there you go. According to Oregon, it is now 10 rounds. It says Oregonians. Who comes up with those names? Oregonian. I'm a native Oregonian. Are no longer able to manufacture, sell, or purchase high-capacity magazines, defined as magazines holding more than 10 rounds of ammunition. People who already own larger magazines can keep them, but could only use them in a few places, including on their own property and on private shooting ranges. Oh my God. 10 rounds. 10 rounds of ammunition is a high capacity round in Oregon now. Or maybe not, because of course it is being it's being stonewalled as being unconstitutional. Stonewalled is unconstitutional. I don't agree. And then Sean says it was 50, then 30, and now the anti-gun people say it's 10. Yes, it's 10. And it doesn't matter anyways, because, you know, you have to pull out your teeth to get a license for an actual fully automatic weapon anyways. So you just have to have a fast trigger finger to to really make that work. I mean, they want it so that only law enforcement can shoot bursts or empty a magazine. And that's really the problem, is that law enforcement and other agencies don't want you to be able to shoot at them. They don't want to tell you the truth. That's also why they want you using hollow points for concealed carry or open carry personal safety firearms, is because it's less likely to penetrate body armor. DIY says losing loved ones in SHTF not necessarily due to combat, but even natural disease. How do we take time to grieve them under the pressure? That's a good question, DIY. Um, you may not have time, and you may have to suck it up until you can get some downtime and can get a loan, but you get yourself a loan, but you need to have downtime, even in the most hostile of situations. You need that break. You can't be on patrol 24/7. You can't be fretting constantly. You need a minute. That's why even in a shelter, in your emergency shelter, in your emergency prep or whatever, have some board games, have a couple of decks of cards, something to occupy your mind. You need that break. Urban says police in Niagara Falls area have not confirmed the explosion, but witnesses say it sounded like one of the on the U.S. side of the border. That'd be interesting if it's because of the protests. Thomas says if it continues like this, you'll be back to the front loaders. Yeah, I know. Well, they'll be trying to ban black powder front loading guns. I'll have to get out my horn of black powder and my balls. Monkey says, watch someone get a bore 4 rifle, a 1-round ammunition that is on the border of an anti-tank rifle. And Urban says the FBI have confirmed it was a vehicle explosion. Okay, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with that. And maybe if I can get some decent information, I can cover it tomorrow. We're going to jump to NEOM. And this is from the Middle East Eye. And the reason I'm talking about this is because people keep saying that this is never going to get off the ground. And it also ties in with how badly the governments in the Middle East oppress people. And it's never talked about. They want to talk all about Gaza. Oh, oppression and genocide and blah. They do that shit out there all the time and no one says a damn thing. And the line is an example of this, or the NEOM project, as it's called. I wanted to catch up with this. It says NEOM satellite images show the progress of Saudi Arabia's The Line. And this is the work camp here. That is the line on the bottom. And I'll show you a better image. But this is water processing and things like this that are going on. It says construction is underway on the line, the flagship project of Saudi Arabia's NEOM megacity. The new satellite imagery seen by Middle East Eye shows $500 billion megacity, which organizers claim will be 33 times the size of New York City, is due to include a 170-kilometer straight line city. It is being built in the Taouk province of northwestern Saudi Arabia. Now I'm going to jump down here. This is the satellite image for those of you who can see. All right. This is it. That's the line. A perfect line. 170 kilometers long. And you can see, and I hope you can hear it over the noise. I apologize. You can see the line there. They've already got a foundation in. So it is happening. And the important thing to consider is that they have completely displaced the native populations there, the indigenous people. They forced them out of their homes. They burned their villages. They put people in prison. They stole from them. They've killed people. There were activists who were on social media begging for help. Hey, they're burning our villages. They're beating people. They're coming in here with SWAT teams and riot gear and just beating people and driving them out of their homes. And those activists are all dead. They've been killed. You heard anybody complaining about it? And is anyone talking about this? No one is talking about this. But this is happening. Even if they never finished the project, they sure did get rid of the indigenous people, didn't they? Where's the outrage? Where is it, folks? Where is it, folks? And Thomas says police are knocking. No, there's construction. There's construction out here. Dragon says it sounds like a dystopian novel. Imagine being a kid growing up there, looking out of your window into the desert and seeing nothing all of your life. All you know is what's in the wall. And, you know, they wouldn't know anything was wrong with it because they grew up there. They'd think it was normal. They would think, why would anybody want to live anywhere else? Why would anybody want anything else? The Bear says traveling down Niagara Street, the car reportedly sped the wrong way into the inspection booths where the explosion occurred. Interesting. And Helta says, apart from the obvious logistics of having to travel such long linear distances, there are drainage issues. Excuse me. And the insanity that comes from living like moles. No, because they are basically, even though it's all interconnected, blocks of 8-minute cities. They're divided into 8-minute walking distance blocks. So each 8-minute block is an individual community within the line that are interconnected through a subway system that is going to run underneath it. A two-way subway system. Excuse me. So you can be locked up into one of those city blocks with nowhere to go and no way out. Oh, and my wife says she is on her way. I'm glad to hear that. I hope she's all right. I worry about her when she's not here. So, yeah, you're living in never mind 15-minute cities. You're living in an 8-minute city, and you can travel to another district that will look exactly like the one you're living in to visit, say, a relative or a friend. But can you imagine? How would you get out of there? Jump off the roof? Maybe you'll tie bed sheets together. And keep in mind that on the exterior of this building, it's going to be mirrored on both sides, and you're in the middle of nowhere in the desert where it's like 120 anyways. You'll get burned alive out there. Urban says it's not even a new idea. Check out old Soviet projects in Siberia and other northern parts. Yeah, it's not a new idea, but they're gonna at least invest in this and pull it off. But people are like, nah, they're not going to get that project off the ground. You can see it in the satellite imagery. It is happening. They've got their foundation in. Next, they're putting in their drainage. They're putting in their sewage because they've got the water plants, and that's what this image is: water treatment and control. And then they'll put in their subway, and then they'll put in a new foundation and start building the city blocks on top of it. So they're not fooling around, and they've got a shit ton of investment in that project. And Thomas says that's exactly why I have a house on the mountain at the edge of the forest. That's why we're in the middle of nowhere. And people, if you can, I know everybody can't, and a lot of people, especially in the prepping community, they live in an urban environment. It's ideal if you can get away. Not everybody can, and I totally understand that. And Keisha says, have you seen anything about the C10 cities? I think they're called no meat or dairy consumption, no private cars, 3 pieces of clothing a year. I haven't seen much, but I have heard about that. I have heard it. Speaking of dystopia, though, you'll love this. I'm going to bounce to New Jersey. And this is an Associated Press article. New Jersey banning the sale of new gasoline-powered vehicles. They expect a total ban by 2035. And Sean says, what is the sales pitch to build the line? They have several videos advertising it. They're not pushing too hard because they're not ready to have people move in yet, obviously. But it's a lot of really interesting propaganda. And if you like, I can try to show one of those commercial blocks tomorrow. They're about 2.5 minutes long. I've seen a few of them. It's pure propaganda, though. But I can, if you're interested, Sean, if you're going to be here tomorrow, I can show one of those if I remember. I should remember, though. I usually do. Yeah, I'll probably be on tomorrow. I wasn't planning on skipping. But now New Jersey, it says New Jersey will prohibit the sale of new gasoline-powered vehicles by 2035 as part of an effort to improve air quality and reduce planet-warming pollutants, officials announced Tuesday. A rule that will take effect January 1st commits the state to an eventual move towards zero-emission vehicles, the State Department of Environmental Protection said in a news release. I guess they haven't seen what's happened in New York with all the electric vehicles that they bought and how they've had to go back to diesel now because the damn things don't work. I read an article about that, 2 weeks ago, was it? Particularly with their electric-powered snowplows, that do not work, that cost 3 times as much as a traditional diesel-powered snowplow. The city invested in those. They spent 535,000 apiece on electric snowplows that can't do the job, as opposed to the $200,000 ones that fully kitted that they traditionally use. I wonder if they've thought about this. It said, back to the article, it is one of a growing number of states to do so, including California, Vermont, New York, Washington, Oregon, Massachusetts, Virginia, Rhode Island, Maryland, and Connecticut, according to Cultura, a Seattle-based nonprofit advocating for an end to gasoline vehicle use. And New York, as well as Massachusetts, and I believe Connecticut, have been rolling that back because the electric vehicles don't freaking work. It says New Jersey will start limiting the amount of new gasoline-powered cars that can be sold in the state starting in 2027, eventually reaching zero in 2035. The move does not prohibit ownership or use of gasoline-powered cars, nor does it force consumers to buy electric vehicles. What are they going to have to do? Leave the state to buy them? It will not prohibit the sale of used cars powered by gasoline, and consumers will still be free to purchase gas-fueled cars elsewhere and bring them into New Jersey. I bet they'll make that hard, as long as they meet, here it comes, certain emissions standards. They'll make the standards so hard they won't freaking work. And Gary says, advertising, who are they selling to? Yes, let's see an ad. And Thomas wants to know if it'll be Palestinians. They don't want them. No one in the Middle East wants Palestinians. They threw them all out. That's how they ended up in Palestine. Monkey says, notice how these states that are banning the purchase of gas-powered vehicles are all Democrat-run. Correct. A lot of PAC money in there. Gary says the cars are zero emissions, but the electric plants are going to be majority ramped up, generating all the power needed. And most of them are going to be coal-fired. Monkey says, except for Virginia. Dragon says, one more reason to leave the state. New Jersey wants to be the East Coast version of California. New Jersey is trying to cram the EV scam down people's throats. And they just lost the whole wind farm project because the foreign company, was it Norway, backed out because the wind farms don't freaking work either. The wind farming projects have turned out to be a total disaster, and they backed out of the project with New Jersey, even turning down $2 billion in taxpayer investment. Helter says sooner or later we'd have to do this at the national level, but increasing EV supply and decreasing sales means something still needs to be fixed. Banning gas cars won't solve climate change, or so-called climate change. I believe that's a scam. Keisha says the electricity to power the electric cars uses coal. Most of it does. And there you go. That's more dystopia, courtesy of New Jersey, trying to force something that doesn't work on its people, not giving them much of a chance, at all. And then they say it doesn't prohibit purchasing it, but I bet you if you purchased a gas-powered vehicle in another state and tried to bring it into New Jersey, they'd give you a hell of a damn time, and it would be very expensive. Very expensive. It says cleaner cars and trucks means cleaner air for our children and families, because the tailpipes of our own vehicles are a leading cause of poor local air quality, said Sean Letourette, the state's environmental protection commissioner. Yeah, I mean, I'm not arguing that vehicle emissions don't cause pollution, but so do a lot of other things that you could work on and don't. And again, a lot of these states that have gone to electric vehicles have had to walk it back because it's not working. It's not working. It's causing more problems than it's solving. As we move around, and Thomas says winter is coming. Yes, it is. And then Urban says there are not enough metals and semi-precious metals in the world to make enough electric cars. Probably not. And they do use, a lot of them use gold and platinum. In certain types of manufacturing, and certain components require the use of gold and platinum. or palladium, which is even more expensive. As we move around here, this is Jamal Bowman trying to be relevant again after he got in trouble. Of course, you know, Jamal Bowman is the moron who pulled the fire alarm in DC and then claimed it was an accident because he thought it was supposed to open the door. And it's now been proven that he knew what he was doing because the video shows him taking down the warning signs before pulling the alarm and running away. Trying to be relevant again by taking jabs at Biden, because that's the thing now. Everybody takes jabs. Bingo says he has to go. Have a good Thanksgiving, just in case I can't make it. Well, glad you were able to pop in here today, Bingo. Jamal Bowman claims Biden's losing black support for not discussing reparations. Is that what it is? I thought that Biden was losing support from Americans and black demographic as well for doing a poor job, for screwing up the economy, for letting too many immigrants into the country, and so on and so on and so on, for lying every time he opens his mouth. He tells a lot of crazy stories, and they're fact-checked and found to be lies. According to Jamal, it's because he's not talking about reparations. I see. I understand now. Squad member Jamal Bowman, Representative Democrat New York, claimed Tuesday evening that President sweet old, lovable old, reliable old, cuddly Uncle Joe Biden is losing support from black voters due to the president not, quote, having a conversation about reparations. Bowman's comment comes after recent polling data from NBC News indicates that the president's support from black voters is faltering, with Biden's net approval rating going from over 46% throughout the year to over 27% in November. The New York congressman argued that the decreased support is due to the Biden administration focusing on sending money to other countries to fight wars overseas instead of spending that money on education or health care. Oh, is that what it is? Well, although I don't agree with him sending money overseas, whether it's for the Ukraine or what, I think we need to really reel that back in. We need to pull a lot of that back in. And spending money on education is a money pit because that system is a broken system. And spending money on healthcare is also a broken system because it's not healthcare, it's health repair. It's putting Band-Aids on bullet wounds, because all we're doing is wasting money in healthcare as well. So back to his quote. So I think it's a combination of these things that's turning young people off, and people of color have been turned off for a while because of lack of comprehensive immigration reform. Really, if you're talking about the Latino community and not conversations at all about reparations, if you talk about the black community, Bowman said on MSNBC Alex Wagner's Tonight. But we're spending hundreds of billions of dollars every year on weapons and war, but we can't even have a conversation about reparations. Those are things that are happening right now. Yeah, okay, Bowman. Okay, Bowman. Oh, Boogers is here. Glad you could make it. Thomas said, shouldn't the Africans be happy their ancestors came as slaves? Otherwise, they would still be in Africa. I don't know. I don't know. My wife doesn't have any complaints about it. And as I've demonstrated on this channel before, her lineage can be traced, and she is a direct slave descendant. Her family were field hands, field pickers, cotton pickers, and tobacco pickers way back in the day. So she is a direct slave descendant. She doesn't have any complaints about it. But that's not the point. They want to complain about it. This is a victimhood mentality. You owe me something because someone else suffered centuries ago. They suffered back before the Civil War or around that time, so you owe me something. And then there's Bowman posing for his picture. I love how he does that there, and he's got his little black power salute. And for those of you who can't see the picture, He's doing a black power salute in the photograph for his photo op, and it looks so phony. He looks like such a fraud in that picture. It's like those. Maybe I can expand that image. There we go. You see it now. It's like when politicians go to a soup kitchen and hand out sandwiches for 10 minutes so they can get photographed and put in the newspaper, and then they go home, and it looks like such bullshit. That's what he looks like here. It's like if I was doing a black power salute. Word, my brother. Word to your mother, straight up, yo. Power to the people. He looks so fake. And again, this is his attempt to be relevant again, since he got a slap on the wrist, I should say, a slap on the wrist for pulling that fire alarm. For what was it, $1,000 fine, and he has to write a letter of apology to the Capital City Police. If I pulled that fire alarm, I'd be doing 5 years, 3 with good behavior. Keisha says, I saw a commercial yesterday about electric cars and recycling and the like, and it said even though it helps only a little bit, we're on the right track and keep doing it. You can't recycle that shit. How do you recycle an electric car? Dragon says Bowman voted to send money to UA even though he'd never heard of Donbass. Now he wants to complain about it. Yeah. And Rodney says, damn, this started an hour earlier than I expected. Anyway, glad to catch the stream before it's over. Yeah, I had to start early, Rodney. And, just to reiterate very quickly, my wife had to leave town because of a family emergency. And she's been gone since Monday. And she's on her way back. And I set up the stream a little early so that I can be ready for her when she returns and help her out. So it's to accommodate her. Where right now we're making fun of Jamal Bowman and his saying that the reason that Biden isn't popular is because he's not talking about reparations for black people. And again, if you try to find anybody to give reparations to, the majority of black people in the United States are not actually descendants of slavery. There's a very small demographic, and many of those people already got their reparations. I talked about that in detail a few months back. Again, my wife is a direct descendant, and her entire family, including several other family, live on heirs land or heirs property, which are blocks of plantations confiscated by the government way back generations ago and chopped up and allotted to family groups who were slave families. They got their reparations, a majority of them. So, Jamal's not a slave descendant. Most black people in the United States are not. And you'll have a hard time finding any. You'll waste a lot of money on committees trying to decide what to do with reparation money if they had any. Monkey says there's a literal government website from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Yeah, that's where you would find heirs land registered, is on the Department of Agriculture. It's really because it's not easy. It's not easy to find that information because, like I said, it's generations, and they don't hardly pay any taxes. I mean, you're living on a 2-acre stretch and you're paying like less than $100 a year in taxes. That's amazing. It's a great deal. Thomas says, don't do the balance of the wise Germans. It's forbidden. And then Urban says, in Canada, the electric car commercials are usually followed by government ads ratcheting up fears about climate catastrophe and boiling oceans. Yeah. And that's the big scam of climate change, because the climate changes constantly every day. And will remind you all, we are actually technically in the tail end of an ice age and transitioning into another age, which is a cycle the Earth goes through every few thousand years. I think the ice age is a 10,000 year cycle. I forget exactly. So I don't want to do too many quotes there, scientifically speaking, but we're at the end of the ice age. That means the world is getting warmer and will get warmer for a while, and then it'll change cycles again. It's natural, but most people don't understand that, and so they get fooled, easily fooled. Fluke Man is here. Fluke Man, you're so late. I'm sorry, because I started an hour early today to help my wife out. And Spectre says, why were my 2 comments deleted? I don't know what your comments were, but Spectre, again, YouTube does that. YouTube will throw comments out, unfortunately. Unfortunately. And Monkey says, farmers.gov, look up heirs, HIRS, heirs, property, landowners, for those who don't believe it. Thank you, Monkey. Thank you. Because most of them got their reparations generations ago. And her family to this day still lives on that property. Hundreds and hundreds of them out there in different family groups live on that property. And one more here, and I got to wrap up. Gary says, we've had 10 years to save the planet since they started talking global warming in the 1980s, and every 10 years they just advance the dates. Long before that. No, Fluke Man, I wasn't planning on it, but she sent me a message. She's returning because she's been gone since Monday for a family emergency, and she's on her way back, and I need to be able to help her. So I had just set it earlier, set it for an earlier time. Although, unfortunately, you can't always rely on YouTube to give proper notifications on time. But I'll be on the regular time tomorrow, and then, of course, you'll be able to catch it after the fact. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up. Again, this is Coffee Talk, or at Coffee Talk Live on YouTube, or Prepper University on YouTube, at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter, or Coffee Talk on fistfulofradio.com. Podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. Although I am told it'll be 2 hours early today on the Fistful of Radio. Special thanks again to Keisha for making a donation to the channel today. Much appreciated. Always appreciated. And with that, I'll go ahead and sign off. Thanks to everybody who was able to join us this afternoon. Hope you got something out of the conversation. Sorry if it threw you off being a little bit early today. Again, that's just so I can help my wife out when she gets back. And I will see you again tomorrow. Yes, I do plan on doing a broadcast tomorrow, even though it is Thanksgiving. And hope you're able to join us then.